It started as just another delivery on a night I shouldn't even have been working. I was covering for a coworker who called in sick, dragging myself through the last few addresses on the list. The city was unusually quiet, that kind of stillness where the air feels too heavy and the sidewalks too empty, the kind of quiet that makes you double-check the rearview mirror without knowing why. I had a stack of orders in the passenger seat, the smell of garlic and melted cheese filling the car. The last ticket slipped from the pile, a scrawl of an address that didn't look familiar. I checked the map twice. It was on the far edge of a neighborhood where houses leaned in on each other, porches sagging, curtains drawn even at night. Pulling up, I noticed the house didn't have lights on, except for a dim glow seeping from an upstairs window. Usually, I'd text or call, but the instructions said, "Knock twice, don't use the bell." My stomach tightened. People make weird requests all the time, but something about the wording felt wrong. I grabbed the box, stepped onto the porch, and knocked. No answer. The second knock echoed too loudly, like the wood of the door wasn't solid but hollow. The silence after was heavier than before, pressing on my chest. Then, faintly, movement inside. Not footsteps exactly, more like a dragging sound across the floor. The door opened just a crack. A face appeared, but only half lit. A man's voice said, low and quick, that the order was for the back door, not here. My instinct said to hand the pizza over and leave, but the way he whispered didn't match the casual words. His eyes darted behind him, then at me, then back again like he was being watched. I nodded and stepped off the porch. The side path was narrow, overgrown with weeds, and the smell of damp earth mixed with something metallic. The back door was half open, no light inside. I hesitated. Every part of me screamed that this was wrong. I should have turned around. But I thought about the manager reminding us not to mess up late-night orders, about tips, about keeping the job. Then I heard it. A muffled thud, followed by what sounded like a whimper. Not loud, but sharp enough to freeze me. I stood there, holding the warm pizza box like a shield, staring into the darkness of that open door. Another sound followed. Chains clinking. Faint, but undeniable. I whispered to myself that it could be the TV or pipes or anything, but when the air shifted and I caught the smell of sweat mixed with fear, because fear does have a smell, I knew I wasn't imagining it. I took one slow step closer, and the house seemed to inhale. The darkness inside wasn't just the absence of light. It felt like a wall, as though stepping in would mean crossing a line I couldn't uncross. I set the box down on the back step, pretending I was done, hoping whoever was inside would take it and let me leave. But then the man's voice came again, not from the back, but from upstairs, strained, urgent, calling a name I didn't recognize, and over it, faintly, another sound, a woman's sob, cut off like someone pressed a hand over her mouth. I felt my pulse hammer in my throat. I wasn't supposed to hear that. I wasn't supposed to be part of this. I stepped back onto the path, ready to bolt, when I caught movement in the upstairs window. The glow shifted, like someone had been standing just behind the curtain, watching. The curtain snapped shut. My car was only 20 feet away, keys in my pocket, safety within reach. But I couldn't make myself move. My feet were planted in the dirt, rooted by something stronger than fear. The certainty that someone inside needed help, right now. I glanced down at the pizza box on the step. Steam curled from the cardboard. Normal, ordinary, but in that moment it looked obscene. Warm food delivered to a place where something cold and brutal was happening. I clenched my jaw, pulled out my phone, and hesitated. If I called the cops, would they even come in time? Would they believe a delivery driver spooked by noises in an old house? Before I could decide, the back door creaked open wider. That's when I saw her. Eyes wide, face pale, mouth gagged. Just for a split second before a hand yanked her back into the shadows. The door slammed, and the house went silent again.
I froze. My brain scrambled to explain it away, to twist what I'd just seen into something ordinary. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe the neighbors were hosting some twisted party. Maybe I imagined the gag and the hand dragging her back. But deep down, I knew the truth. There was nothing staged about the look in her eyes. I backed away from the door, my sneakers crunching on gravel, every sound amplified in the stillness. I wanted to run to my car, peel out of there, and let it become someone else's problem. But then I thought about what would happen if I drove away. That face would haunt me. Worse, I'd know I'd chosen safety over doing the right thing. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands, dialed 911, and whispered into the receiver. My voice cracked as I explained I was the delivery driver, that I'd seen a woman restrained in a house, that something was happening right now. The dispatcher asked for the address, told me to stay on the line, told me not to go back inside. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me, eyes locked on the upstairs window where the curtain had moved earlier. While I spoke, I heard footsteps again. Heavy, uneven, like someone dragging something across the floor. They grew louder, closer, until they seemed to echo through the walls themselves. I ducked low, pressing myself against the side of the house, phone clutched tight. The dispatcher asked if I could still hear anything, and I whispered yes, too afraid to raise my voice. Then, silence. It was worse than the noise. Silence meant they could be standing right behind the door, listening. The dispatcher said officers were on the way, but the nearest unit was several minutes out. Minutes felt like hours. My breath fogged in the cold air as I debated leaving. But I couldn't. Something in me locked into place. If I left now, if I abandoned her, I'd carry that choice forever. So I stayed, crouched in the shadows, ears straining for any sound. That's when I noticed the pizza box. It was still on the step, steam gone now, cardboard dampening in the night air. And then, slowly, carefully, it slid across the porch, pulled inside by an unseen hand.
I swear, my heart stopped. I pressed myself flatter against the wall. Whoever had grabbed it didn't step out, didn't show themselves. Just the box, vanishing into the dark. Then, I heard it again. Not a cry this time, but a muffled banging, like someone struggling against restraints. And a voice, low and angry, barking words I couldn't make out. I whispered all of it to the dispatcher, but even as I spoke, I knew no one could get here fast enough. If he decided to hurt her, it would happen before the sirens came. I had two choices: stay hidden and wait, or act. Against every survival instinct, I chose to act. I crept toward the back door, which was still slightly ajar. The smell hit me first. Sour sweat, old food, and something coppery that twisted my stomach. My hand hovered over the wood, heart pounding so hard it hurt. I told myself I'd just peek in, just confirm what I saw, then retreat. I pushed the door open an inch. Inside, the kitchen was a mess. Plates stacked high, cans scattered, stains on the linoleum that made my skin crawl. A single bulb swung above, its flicker casting jagged shadows. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a gunshot in the silence. I heard it again. The chains, faint but undeniable, from deeper in the house. I inched forward, breath caught in my throat. The dispatcher's voice was still buzzing in my ear, asking me to describe what I saw, but I was too focused, too locked in. At the end of the hall was a door, half open. A sliver of light spilled out, yellow and sickly. I crept closer, and through that gap I caught a glimpse. A woman, tied to a chair, wrists raw against the rope, her eyes wet and wild. She looked right at me. Her lips moved beneath a gag, desperate, pleading. I raised a hand to signal silence, to let her know I'd seen her, but before I could do anything else, another shadow moved across the room. A man, broad-shouldered, face half hidden in the dim light. He loomed behind her, muttering under his breath, pacing like an animal in a cage.
Every so often he stopped and leaned close, as if whispering threats only she could hear.
My blood ran cold. I pressed back against the wall, praying he wouldn't step out into the hall. Then came a sound that made me jolt, the faint wail of sirens in the distance. Not close, but enough to reach the house. The man stiffened. He turned sharply toward the window, muttering, louder now, frantic. The woman thrashed, muffled cries spilling past the gag. My phone buzzed, the dispatcher telling me officers were almost there. But then, impossibly, the man turned toward the doorway, toward me. I stumbled back, heart leaping into my throat. His footsteps pounded against the floor as he stormed closer. I didn't think. I bolted through the kitchen, out the back, nearly tripping over the threshold. The cold air hit me like a slap as I sprinted toward my car. Behind me, the door slammed open. His voice bellowed, deep and furious, carrying into the night. I reached the car, yanked the door, scrambled inside. Keys fumbled, hands slick with sweat. I turned the ignition just as I saw him emerge onto the porch, eyes locked on me, chest heaving. For a moment, our gazes met. His stare wasn't just angry, it was hollow, like looking into something stripped of humanity. Then blue and red lights flooded the street. He spun, bolting back inside. Officers swarmed seconds later, flashlights cutting through the night, shouts echoing. I sat frozen behind the wheel, engine running, heart racing too fast to count. All I could think was, if I hadn't stayed, she wouldn't have had a chance. But the night wasn't over yet.
Not wide, not obvious, just the faint curl of lips, enough to freeze the blood in my veins. An officer tapped on my window, pulling me from the trance. I lowered it slowly, my breath fogging in the cold night air. She asked if I was the caller. My nod was shaky. She asked me to step out, to give a statement. The next hour blurred into fragments. Standing under the harsh beam of a flashlight, recounting what I'd seen, the pizza box pulled inside, the gagged woman, the moment he charged toward me. My voice cracked more than once, but the officer didn't flinch. She just scribbled notes, asked me to repeat certain details, then reminded me to breathe. Eventually, they told me I could go. They had my number. They might need me for court. I should have left right then, driven home, locked my door, and tried to scrub the night from my mind. But as I slid back into my car, something made me pause. The house. Its windows were dark now. Porch light shattered during the scuffle. It sat hunched against the night like something alive, something watching. The thought struck me, sudden and undeniable. This place had seen horrors long before I arrived, and it would see them again, long after I was gone. Because evil doesn't vanish with sirens. It doesn't end with handcuffs. It lingers. The drive home was silent, my headlights carving a lonely path down empty streets. Every shadow seemed to move. Every stoplight felt like a trap. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see him sitting in the back seat, smiling that faint smile. When I finally pulled into my apartment lot, I sat in the car for nearly 10 minutes, unable to convince myself it was safe to step out. When I did, I bolted upstairs, locked the door twice, and collapsed against it. But sleep didn't come. Every creak of the building made me jump. Every hum of the fridge sounded like a whisper. And when the doorbell rang, sudden, sharp, at 4:12 a.m., I nearly screamed. I froze. 3 minutes passed before I gathered the courage to look through the peephole. Nothing. Just the empty hallway, lights buzzing faintly overhead. No one stood there.
I should have felt relief when the squad car screeched to a halt outside the house. Flashlights sliced through the darkness, officers shouting commands, boots slamming against the pavement. But instead of relief, all I felt was a gnawing dread, because I knew this wasn't over. I stayed in my car, engine humming, knuckles white on the steering wheel. The dispatcher's voice was still faint in my ear, urging me to stay put until an officer approached. But my eyes stayed locked on the house, on that crooked porch where the man had stood just moments earlier, staring me down with those empty, soulless eyes. 2 officers rushed through the front door, while another circled around back. Muffled shouts erupted inside, heavy footsteps thundering against wooden floors. For a moment, I thought it would be quick, that they'd overpower him, free the woman, and it would all be over. Then the first gunshot cracked through the night. I flinched, instinctively ducking lower in my seat. The second shot followed almost instantly. Then silence. My chest tightened. I couldn't tell if the shots meant danger ended or if something had gone horribly wrong. Seconds stretched like hours. Then a radio call blared from one of the cruisers and more officers flooded the house. Red and blue lights painted the street in pulsing waves. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Doors cracked open just enough to glimpse the chaos. Finally, they brought her out. The woman stumbled between two officers, gag removed, her face pale and streaked with tears. She clutched her arms to her chest, rope still dangling from her wrists. Even from the car, I could see the raw abrasions on her skin, the way her body trembled. Her eyes scanned the street until they found me, and for a heartbeat we locked eyes. There was no anger, no blame, just something heavy, a silent acknowledgement that I had seen her and chosen not to look away. But the man didn't come out. Two officers dragged a stretcher to the door, and only then did I see him. He wasn't dead. His arms were restrained, his face twisted in a mix of rage and something else, something feral. Blood stained his shirt, though whether from him or from a scrape during the struggle, I couldn't tell. His eyes darted wildly, landing on everything and nothing at once. And then, as they hauled him toward the ambulance, his gaze found me again. I swear he smiled.
I didn't open the door. I didn't move until dawn. In the days that followed, I learned fragments. The woman had been reported missing by her family a week earlier. The man, her abductor, had a record. Assault, trespassing, restraining orders that never seemed to stick. He'd been slipping through cracks for years. This time, he hadn't. But I couldn't shake it. That look on his face, that smile. Because when I closed my eyes, I saw it again. Not just in memory, but sharper, closer, like he was still here. And every time my doorbell rings, no matter the hour, a part of me wonders if it's really over, if he's really gone, or if one night I'll open the door and find him standing there, waiting.